But thank you all for joining. I really appreciate your time and spending your evening with us to get to know Beyond Akeela a little bit more. It's one of my favorite things to do is talk about camp and share sort of the experience of Beyond Akeela with other people. It's something I've really dedicated my life to over the past 10 years or so. So it's really my life's work, and I'm really excited to share it with you all this evening. Just like at camp, I'm going to preview sort of what you can expect from the night here. And I'm going to share my screen because we are going to have some slides and some imagery here as we go through this session. And hopefully you all can see that. Maybe someone on screen give me a little thumbs up just to make sure. Awesome. And so, yeah, but just like we do at camp, we really like to preview things so you can get a good sense of what to expect while you're at camp. And we'll do the same tonight. So here's a brief overview of what our agenda is, but these are generally the topics that I'm going to cover this evening with a goal of really helping you all understand how Beyond Akeela helps launch neurodivergent teens towards successful college outcomes and college transitions. That's really what our programming is all about. Hopefully tonight we'll show you how we do that, why we do that, and get a sense for what it actually looks like too. I think the best way for you all to get a real clear view of what camp looks like is to actually be at camp itself. This is sort of the next best thing, especially when we're all over the country and the globe. So this is going to take about 20 minutes of me talking. We'll sort of break in between for a little Q&A, and then we'll do Q&A again at the end. Feel free just to put a question in the chat. You can either put it directly, privately to me. The Beyond Akeela Kevin Trimble is my, where I'll be able to see it, or you can put it in the general inbox and I will see it there too. So with that, we'll get started. First thing we like to do is just introduce our family. So this is my family. It's my wife, Kristen, and our two boys, Simon and Arlo. They are twins. They're a bit older now. We'll be turning 6 this coming summer. We are very fortunate. We have nannies who come in and help take care of them over the summer. They have their own little day camp experience too. So they get to have a blast while we run camp. Kristen is my wife and co-director. We actually met at camp back in 2015. We've been together in Philadelphia, got married, fell in love, and have our little family now. Kristen is a school counselor by trade. So her educational background is in psychology, counseling, has multiple masters, one in educational leadership, but has really focused her career on supporting neurodivergent youth and their social emotional growth and in school settings and in camp. So she sort of oversees that element of camp for us. I started with Akeela back in 2009, which is the second year of Akeela as a whole. Fell in love with it and the community. And again, for the past 10 years or so, have really dedicated my sort of professional time with Akeela to this college transition age group of neurodivergent teens and the Beyond Akeela program, and really making it one that really transforms teens' lives so that they can have, very successful college transitions. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like this evening. So that's just a little bit more about us and who we are. And some general quick facts. We're going to start at a pretty high level here. And to think of it as a funnel, we're going to start working our way down and get to more of the nitty-gritty as the session goes along here. So Akeela as an organization has sort of 2 different camps. So some of you may have heard of Camp Akeela. That is our traditional New England, Vermont summer camp. Middle of the woods, cabins, all the fun camp activities, lakefront, ropes course, all that good stuff. And that started in 2008, really with the idea of, at the time, there weren't as many camps out there for neurodivergent youth, and specifically the population we work with here at Akeela. And we wanted to create a place that felt like camp and not a social skills camp or something, very specific skills-based, let's say, to our kids, and create just a really fun camp experience that was structured intentionally for them, so where they could thrive and not just sort of like fit in and try and get by. And Beyond Akeela was created a few years after, as we were hearing from families that they were looking for a little bit more after their teens were aging out and thinking about life after high school. And so we started Beyond Akeela in 2011. It's taken a few different iterations for us to really land on this college campus model that we've been on for the past 10 years or so, where we've really landed on helping transform teens and provide this experience that launches them towards those successful college transitions. So that's obviously what we're going to talk a lot more about this evening. We, at a very logistical level, we do 2.5 week summer sessions. It's about 50 teens a session. And most teens will do just one of those sessions. It is sort of a repeat program, but about 10% of the families will do both sessions. And obviously we see a lot of growth from those families as well. We have about 20 experienced staff on our team every summer, including a professional leadership team of educators and school counselors, social workers, therapists, things like that on our site. And then also a registered nurse on our team over the summer who manages all the healthcare and medication administration. And we'll talk a little bit more about our team in a little bit. And just generally where we are, we're located on the campus of Curry College in Milton, Massachusetts. It's about 30 minutes outside of Boston. And it's very serene where we are, sort of feels like a secluded campus. It's a gated community, very green, beautiful location for us. And doesn't feel like you're in suburban Boston or Boston by any means, but you have all of those resources around. So it's been a really great fit for us. Curry as a school is also very well known for catering its community to neurodivergent learners. And they're making a lot of strides with that, with some neurodiversity initiatives. So it's been a really good fit for us. And our programming in general, and this is going to sort of segue into talking a little bit more about our philosophy and how we structure camp, is really focused on social connection, executive function, and self-advocacy. These are some of the critical skills that we view as extremely important for succeeding in a college environment, not just getting into a college environment, but once you're actually there, thriving, doing more than just sort of getting by and having a really successful transition in. So these are the skill areas that we primarily focus our programming on, that you'll hopefully get a good sense of this evening as we talk a little bit more about what we are actually doing. So the first thing, and I think the most important thing, I think if you're walking away with anything tonight, I think what really sets us apart from any other program that's out there for this college transition age is the community that we're creating. And that's really intentional for us. We really believe in creating a strong sense of community amongst our campers and our staff. And that allows teens, we find, to be more comfortable taking positive risks at camp, whether that's a social risk, trying something new, an activity, just trying to be more independent and how they navigate their day. We're finding that teens, when they're more comfortable around like-minded peers who have shared similar experiences to them and staff who get them and support them and want to build genuine relationships with them, that's when our teens really thrive, step out of their comfort zone, try something new. And that's where the learning really occurs. Getting praise for their successes, and then encouragement and guidance and coaching when they have challenges or hurdles that they have to overcome. Camp is not going to feel like this. This is not a picture from Beyond Akeela. This is a picture from the internet. And it is, you're not going to feel like you're in a school program by any means, like you're sitting in a classroom all day and doing some skills-based program where you're just sort of learning, taking notes, doing homework. That's not the vibe that you're going to feel at Beyond Akeela. It's going to feel a lot more like this. So much of what our responsibility during the year is to bring in the right group of neurodivergent teens who have shared similar life experiences and have similar goals too, similar things that they're all working towards and thinking about college and having some educational pursuits after high school. And with that group, then providing this really balanced blend of structured and unstructured experiences that through doing and not through lectures, they're going to learn a lot about themselves and build a lot of confidence in their ability to launch into college. And we really find that teens are walking away with a better sense of self-awareness and just a newfound confidence that they're going to be able to overcome some of the hurdles that college presents for them. I think that's one of the biggest points of feedback we get from families once their teens have gone off to college is that they are now encountering challenges that they face, whether it's a roommate conflict or how to ask for help with something that you're not really quite sure about how to ask for help with in a college environment. That's something that they had to navigate at Beyond Akeela and are feeling more confident doing so independently once they're in college itself. So that's a little bit about our community. I think a really another key to the success of Beyond Akeela teens is the independence they experience in our program. I think most families would describe their teens who are coming to Beyond Akeela as independent young people, independent young adults, and working on different skills, certainly to continue that independence. And we sort of look at independence in a couple different lenses. The first is freedom and choice. I think it's like the fun part of independence. And I think Beyond Akeela teens are ready for more freedom in their summer experience. This comes along with sort of the trust and respect that they've earned at this age, and sort of that they've proven that they can do that a little bit more. So we really create as many opportunities as we can for independent decision making, for our teens and choice as we can, still within a fairly structured program. We'll sort of get a little bit more to what that looks like later in the session here. There's a lot of choice-based activities, though. It's a really big part of our programming. We want teens who come to Beyond Akeela to really control their schedule, have some agency, have some ownership over their experience. What we find is that the more agency they have, the more successful outcomes they're going to have throughout the course of the session with us. The more they're motivated and bought in, they're customizing their own schedule, following their own schedule, making changes to it. Those are the things that lead to our teams being more motivated to get more out of the experience at Beyond Akeela. The other part of independence is responsibility. And this is the components of things like executive functioning and managing your time, staying more organized, making sure that you're getting yourself ready to go in the morning more independently than you may have at other summer programs in the past, and sort of practicing all these skills that are inherent parts of the college experience. And from a life skill standpoint, there's going to be more opportunities to do your laundry, manage money, cook for yourself with a group. You'll go grocery shopping. That's what that image on the left there is. So you're going to be practicing a lot of these different responsibilities that you have as a young adult, transitioning into college and living more independently. The goal is that we want to give everyone who's coming to camp just more practice with these skills and applying these skills that maybe in some cases you're doing at home, which is great. This is a chance to apply them in a new independent setting on a college campus that's going to be very real for you in a year or two or three. So that's really the model that we're working with here. And know that Beyond Akeela staff are really trained to support you and guide you towards opportunities to practice these skills, develop new strategies to help implement them more effectively too while you're at camp. That's really the main focus of the staff while they're with us at Beyond Akeela. And speaking of them, we're going to talk just a little bit now about our coaching model at Beyond Akeela. We really individualize the experience for every team through our coaching from our really well-trained and experienced staff. The young people who come in to work with us, I feel very fortunate and grateful to have the opportunity to do so. They are coming in from backgrounds of education, special education, psychology, speech language pathology, counseling, social work. These are all future educators, therapists of the world, typically have just completed their undergrad program or working towards completing it after their junior year. So an experienced group who also are motivated professionally to continue the work that they're doing at Beyond Akeela and bring in their own experience working with teens before they get to camp. Then we'll also have our professional leadership team of educators, school counselors, school social workers, things like that, who are going to be there to support our advising staff and our coaches. And they'll also be points of communication with families back at home to give progress updates on how teens are doing in our community over the course of the summer. The coaching that we're doing is scaffolded. So how we work with teens is teens will pick individual skills that they want to work on while they're at camp. And throughout the session, there will be several different times when we have these one-on-one conversations with teens with their coach, where they will get to talk with the coach about what they want to work on while they're at camp, and their coach is going to help them find opportunities and take advantage of those opportunities so they can practice those skills a little bit more in our community. And our staff are going to give them the right kind of support and guidance to help them make the most of it and maybe try something new too, step out of their comfort zone a little bit, and then provide guidance and support, maybe when it doesn't go as expected. And then again, that praise and recognition when it does go as expected. So that's generally the model that we work with. And just, a sort of a fun thing about our staff too, is these are people who have self-selected into a camp community. These are not people who want to go work in a research lab over the summer or go work in an office and sit at a desk all summer. These are people who are willing to have a pie thrown in their face because they made some type of wager with their cohort about some skills that they were all working on and some goals they were working towards as a group. That group had that goal achieved, and then they got to throw a pie in our staff members' face at our evening meeting in front of all of camp. So that's the kind of community we're really creating. It's all about relationships and having really fun, motivated staff like this who are there to help create a really magical experience for everyone. So that is the first portion of, I want to take a quick break here and see if there are any questions out there. I'm just going to do a quick stop of the share here. Feel free, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. I think one did come in. I think it was just a private message asking about medication, because I did mention the nurse. This is a good question. So medication at Beyond Akeela, we do have a registered nurse on staff. We are required by Massachusetts law for all of the medication to live in our health center over the course of the summer. So that health center is in our dormitory building. And what we do is we make sure that it's available to our teens at the appropriate times for them to take their medication. So most of the meal med passes come at things like breakfast, at all of the meals, obviously, an afternoon snack medication, as needed, and then also evening time, of course, as well. So at meals, our nurses are going to take the medication to the health center, or sorry, to the dining hall with our campers, so that the campers can go access the medication from the nurses then. And then at evening time, when we're all back in the dorm, the health center is obviously open for teens to go get their medication at that point. And medication encompasses everything. So even things like vitamins, over the counter. It's just a state law that we have to abide by. We do have minors on site, and so we do have to follow that law. But again, we're just really making teens show the initiative to go get the medication. Ultimately, we are going to make sure that they get their medication while they're with us at camp. The other thing I'll mention about medication is that we do work with a specific pharmacy. It's called Camp Meds. And what we do is we ask that families send any prescriptions over the counters through this pharmacy. They send it to us in an extremely easy to dispense way, so that medication administration runs really smoothly and safely at camp. As you can imagine, a lot of the teens who are coming into our community do take daily medication, sometimes multiple daily medications. It's really important, just for the safety of everyone, that we have a really organized system for doing that. So we do have the Camp Meds program that we use for that. All right. Get a few more questions coming in. All right, so it looks, I got two sort of related questions. I think just speaking generally more towards who our population is, level of independence that we see at Beyond Akeela, which are great questions. So how we would describe Beyond Akeela teens, is college capable young people who are working on their college readiness. And when we think about readiness, the lens that they're, again, working on that readiness is more around their social, emotional learning, and so ability to develop and maintain social relationships, and also their executive function skills. So being able to manage time, block out big chunks of projects into smaller chunks, staying organized. Those are often the types of skills that our teens are working on. Generally speaking, though, a lot of our teens can, at home, when they're in their routines and most comfortable, can lead pretty independent lives. Are comfortable going to a store, picking up some groceries, maybe, and coming back if it's something that they've done before, let's say, right? But often benefit from practice and routines and building these different skills. In terms of, we don't like track IQ or anything like that, but these are people who are capable of pursuing a college degree of some kind. So typically average to above average IQ is what we would say. And then in terms of sort of regulation skills, that's an important one to talk about as well. Our teens have sort of the basic self-regulation skills to prevent frustrations, moments of anxiety from turning into big outbursts or moments of aggression. We do not see those things at Beyond Akeela. So they have the skills, whether, maybe it's talking with an adult, taking a break, they're able to sort of recognize that that's happening, maybe benefit from a little prompt from a staff member or an adult to say, hey, I noticed that you're starting to get a little upset. Let's think about something, how we can move on from this moment, or what do we need to get through it so you can take a break and maybe rejoin us in 10, 15 minutes. That's a type of support they might benefit from, but not necessarily significant one-to-one or clinical therapeutic intervention in our type of setting. So I don't know, hopefully that helps answer a little bit more about sort of who we're working with. In terms of diagnoses, what we typically see is an ASD-1 diagnosis, ADHD and attentive type, PDD and OS, sometimes that's still out there, general learning disabilities, but social anxiety, we'll see all those sorts of diagnoses with our campers. Um, and so let's see. We had a question here about meal times. Are meals communal options for campers to eat meals on their own? Um, and experience with AFRID. So we have had a few campers in the past who have had AFRID. And meal times, we do all eat together. So we all will go to the dining hall at a set time. That's part of our just being on a college campus over the course of the summer. You sort of have to operate within certain hours that the dining hall is available. But yes, we all go together. Meals are definitely a social time for us at Beyond Akeela. We really encourage teens to be around their peers during that time, sit at tables and not just sort of sprawled out across the dining hall. If you have individual concerns about your teen and their ability to eat comfortably in a dining hall around other people, certainly let us know. That's a conversation that we've had with families in the past. What we want to make sure is that teens ultimately will generally feel comfortable eating in a communal environment, like we do at Beyond Akeela. And what we found is that, the teens who have had some concerns about that, when they got to camp, it didn't really end up being much of a concern at all. They were able to really succeed and thrive and have meals with the rest of the group without any real concern or additional support from us. And we have had some teens with AFRID. Again, certainly happy to talk with any family about individual needs around meals. We do also work with a college dining cafeteria that offers tons of special dietary support for really anyone coming to camp. That's never been something that we haven't really been able to work around. So good question there. Let's see. So we have another question here. There's a question here about dorms. I will talk about that in the next couple slides. So I will just save that. It's a great question, but I will get to that. There's a question here about examples of goals, skills campers choose to work on. It's a great question. So some campers, I think a very common one is initiating social interactions with peers, and with new peers in particular, and wanting to work on developing their confidence and building their skills and initiating a new interaction or joining in on an activity that they're interested in and seeing other people doing, but not quite sure how to join in on that. Some people want to work on recognizing social cues when they've been talking for a long time about their interest and recognizing when maybe it's another person's turn to talk in the conversation or another person sort of lost interest in whatever it is that they're talking about. So that's another cue sometimes that people are looking to develop. Time management's a really big one too. I think that's a big one that we've seen more and more every year with teams wanting to work on practicing that at camp. It's a great place to do so. And then also just like general organization, staying organized, making sure that they have the right belongings, they're following their schedule. And then, self-advocacy too. So being able to advocate for themselves, ask for help when they need it, and do so independently as opposed to being prompted to do so. So that's a general array of the types of skills that we see campers coming to camp wanting to work on. We have a good question here. Do campers typically go to Akeela after the junior year or after their senior year? Our biggest group of teens each summer comes to camp after their junior year. That's about half of our camp population each summer. And then the other half is split between teens who have completed their sophomore year or teens who have completed their senior year, so our post-grad group. But typically our biggest age group every summer is teens who have completed their junior year. But again, everyone is coming at slightly different ages too. Yeah, so there's a question here about going through program specifics related to college prep. We are going to get to that a little bit later here. And then a question here about measuring progress for the skills that our teens are wanting to work on. So yes, we'll get to the question about the program specifics that's coming up sort of next in the session here. In terms of mechanisms for measuring progress of the skills, absolutely. So part of, that happens multiple ways. So one, there is going to be some self-reporting from the campers. They are going to self-monitor their progress in the skills. And that's something that we're going to track through our coaching conversations with them. And you will get that sort of feedback at the end of the summer too, about how they felt they achieved or how they developed in their skills and how confident they started to feel in their skills while they were at camp. So that's one piece of feedback that you're going to get. The other is that we as a staff are obviously around very frequently. So we see everything that's going on at camp. We're observing all of the campers and their interactions with their peers and navigating the different skills that they want to work on. It's not just that one staff member who's working with that camper. That camper is working with all 20 staff members. You're going to interact with them in different ways. So we're making sure that the appropriate staff members have the information about each camper, towards the skills that they want to work on, and they're tracking all of that. So we're going to continue to develop notes about that. We're tracking those notes throughout the summer through different forms, and then we're sharing that progress with you and the camper at the end of the summer to give you a sense of the progress that we saw in your teams over the course of their time with us at camp. All right. All right, we have two more questions. I'm going to get to those and then get back to the session here. Let's see. It says, are you only accepting 50 campers? That's typically where we've just landed. We do have a little space for a little bit more, but 50 is generally the number that we aim for. And another question here, just about, do students typically attend for 1 year or multiple years? We do have teens who will attend multiple years. We have a few teens each summer who will have done their 3rd year with us. So they've started as a 10th grader and finished after their post-grad year. But it ranges. I'd say 25 to 30% of our community returns the following year. And it's primarily the group of people who have completed their 10th grade year and then gone on to their junior year and done that with us. We see some teens who complete their junior year and come back after their post-grad experience, but it really ranges year to year. Obviously, there's a lot of factors for families thinking about fall plans and their summer before that. So that is that. I saw one question come in. We will get to that one at the end. I promise, but I want to get back to our slides here. All right, back to our old friend Justine with the pie in her face. All right. So, let's see. Here we go. All right, so dorm life. We had a question about that come up in the chat earlier. So dorm life is really fun at Beyond Akeela. It's a really important part of camp. During some of the unstructured times in our community, the dorm is, I think, a pretty lively place and a very social place. Certainly available, options for teens to get more quiet time during those unstructured times too in their rooms. But in the lounges, it's definitely a space where you're going to see a lot of this. A lot of teens hanging out with each other, playing games, and coming up with goofy things to do with their lanyards around their heads. But generally speaking, what dorm life looks like at Beyond Akeela, we do mixed genders floors, and we have teens live with similar aged peers. So they share common areas like lounges and different sort of communal areas in the dorm, bathrooms. We have a men's room, a women's room, an all gender bathroom on each floor. There's also going to be 3 different wings. So there's a men's wing, a women's wing, and a gender neutral wing. And again, accompanying bathrooms for all of those. Everyone at Beyond Akeela is going to have a roommate. That's a really important part of our program. And we really do our best to pair people together who we think are going to not only get along really well, but also coexist really well too. So we get to know teens really, really well through our application process and also a survey through that we'll send out after they've enrolled that will help us get to know sleeping habits and things like that. And then we do our best again to pair people together who we think are going to get along really well as roommates. And we're always going to send out their contact information a few weeks before camp so that teens can connect with one another before they arrive and they're not just meeting each other for the very first time when they get to camp. Staff do live on the floors with the teens in separate single rooms. And they're obviously around there to help teens navigate the social nuances of having a roommate, working through conflicts and challenges, and just overall goal is to help create that lively experience in the dorm that our teens can have a really positive social experience while they're in the dorm. And we also have air conditioning too in the dorm. So that's a really nice perk. It keeps us nice and cool over the summer. Certainly really important as the summers get warmer and warmer. So that's a little bit more about what dorm life looks like. And now we're going to talk just a little bit more about programming and what our program really looks like on a day-to-day basis. What you're going to see here is a sample weekly schedule So you can see that there are some days that we're going to follow generally the same routine schedule. And then there's going to be other days where it gets mixed up a little bit, or we have a trip day. So I'm going to give you a general overview of all of these different activities that you see here. And with the goal of helping you better understand a little bit of, what camp is actually going to look like and what some of the ins and outs of these different programs are. And I'm also going to, at the end, share a link to our web page that has this information on it that you can get a little more detailed reading on if you are interested in pursuing a little bit more information about what the program really looks like on a day-to-day basis. So with that, we will go on. And one last thing to say actually about this schedule here is teams will get a version of this after they submit their activity preferences to us. So we'll send out a survey in the spring, getting to know what activities teens are most interested in doing. When they arrive at camp, they're going to get a schedule that looks very similar to this, that outlines from day 1 to day 19 what their schedule is going to look like hour by hour, really. What you don't see on here too are the things like the unstructured times, the meals. It just sort of gets a little convoluted, but we do have unstructured time, some downtime built into the day as well. We know that's really important for our teens and also just important part of what college is going to be like too. Not every single minute of their day is going to be structured. So with that, we'll talk a little bit more about the different activities that we're doing. So camp activities, these are just sort of fun, lightly structured social opportunities for our teens to engage with their peers around a similar interest. So things like arts, music, creative writing, Dungeons and Dragons. It's very, very popular at Beyond Akeela. We have team sports. There's some wilderness survival activities, theater, yoga, and mindfulness. Again, we're really incorporating these activities just so that teens have a fun social opportunity to pursue an interest of theirs with some like-minded peers who also share that interest and some staff members who also share that interest as well. Community service, a really important part of our programming, really popular part of our programming as well, and a really great chance for our teams to work on and develop some of their workplace readiness skills. I'll say that one thing we've heard from a lot of families after camp ends is that teens have used this experience, they've leveraged it to obtain more volunteer experiences outside of Beyond Akeela, and in some cases paid job opportunities as well. So it's been a really important part of what we do. How it works though is our teens are going to self-select between a range of 7 or 8 different options of community service choices, the ones that they're most interested in. They're going to go to one of those locations 7 different times over the course of the summer. So they're really going to develop some, a workplace relationship with the organization that they're working with and the peers that they're going with, typically a small group of 4 or 5 peers and then a staff member accompanying them to really support them with how to interact and, carry yourself in a job-like environment like that. Few of the options that we've had in previous summers: libraries, YMCAs, YMCA day camps. We've worked with community gardens that have collective share agreements, animal hospitals, grocery stores. So a range of different options. But again, they're going offsite to these organizations and really getting some meaningful community service experience through that. And some families have asked too about the if the hours would count towards high school graduation. Absolutely, we can certainly sign off on a lot of the documents or whatever documents need to be signed off on after the summer. One other option that we provide for teens during the community service block is helping create our Beyond Akeela podcast. We've done this for the past couple of years, but for teens who are interested in a little bit more about content creation and project-based learning, that's what the podcast is all about. We are on Spotify, so if you want to check out some previous summer work, you can certainly hear us on that. But it's a chance for teens, typically a group of like 16s or so, to build from scratch a podcast, create the intro music, work as a team, create the scripts, do all the recording, editing, and make sure it's ready for the airwaves. So it's been a really fun project for the teens who have chosen that one. In terms of what, I think this is what the question that came in earlier was sort of geared towards, what are, curriculum around college, more specific college readiness skills, or the college transition process and what our curriculum sessions look like. So I'll talk about that more here. We have a couple different components of our program that really lend their hand towards this. So one is our curriculum sessions. These happen more or less every other day, and they are guided conversations led by our staff members on a variety of different topics that are all relevant for any teen who is thinking about life after high school, and wanting to develop their readiness for that. We work with Curry, other professionals in the college readiness sphere for neurodivergent teens on developing this curriculum, and sort of taking the best of the best and building it into our programming here. Sometimes we'll bring in some of those folks to actually lead some of these sessions as well. But the topics range from things like building healthy relationships in college, navigating social life in college, understanding the differences between the academic organization required in high school and the academic organization required in college. So a range of topics like that. Some are going to be more focused on executive functioning, like time management specifically. We have a session on that. Some are going to be more focused on life skills like nutrition or building healthy living habits, resume building, mock interviews for more vocationally focused sessions. And campers are going to pick and choose the sessions that are most relevant for them. There's always going to be a few different options during each curriculum session block. And then campers are going to pick and choose the sessions that are most relevant for them. And as you can see, we do these in like small group discussion format. So it's not just like a big lecture hall and we're giving some presentation. It's much more small group oriented conversations that are workshop based too. So campers are sort of walking away with a worksheet or some type of document that indicates what they worked on, what they sort of learned and gained through that process that they can go over with you when they're home. So you can sort of see the types of things that they were thinking about and reflecting on while they were at camp. Another component of that is the workshops that we do and the college visits that we offer. These workshops are going to be led by either college faculty members, educational consultants, but people who are really experts in their fields to lead conversations with our teens about navigating the college application process for your neurodivergent teen, how to write a really effective college essay for your college application, how to access resources in college and support in college and how that differs from high school. So sort of like the transition from the IEP to Office of Disability Services and what that's going to look like. But really helping teens reflect on, these different, very college focused not activities, but skills or things that are sort of coming up for them, so that again, they have some tangible things to walk away from camp with on that end, that are going to help them with whatever's coming next for them in the fall. For our youngest cohort, our foundation group, so rising juniors, those folks will be doing college visits during that time. So they have a chance to go visit schools like Dean College, which is a small liberal arts school that caters really well to neurodivergent learners, Bridgewater State University, bigger public school, Mass Art, Olin College, which is more of like a engineering focused school. But what we want to do through those those college visits is give our teens a chance to sort of understand what it's like to be in different types of college learning environments and see what it feels like to be at a big state school versus a small school. So as they start to hone in on their college search, they get a better sense for maybe what they feel most comfortable with and what they're looking for, to have a more effective college search once they really get into the weeds of that in the following year. And then part of what is going to differentiate us from other programs out there is that our staff ratio is about a 1-to-3 ratio of advisors to campers. So they are really there to debrief a lot of these sessions with campers, help them really process what they got out of it, so that again, when they're coming home, they have something to really talk through with you, that's going to show some of the things that they reflected on and thought about and are more excited to work on once they get home. So another part of our programming is health and wellness. It's a really important part of college readiness. So our teens are going to have opportunities to go to the fitness center, swim in the pool on campus, just have an hour every other day that's sort of structured into our schedule where they are going and being active for an hour. And they can sort of pick and choose what they're most interested in doing. The picture you see on the right here is a game called Armenian Dodgeball that a staff member brought to camp a few summers back. It was a big hit. So we kept doing it. And it's a really fun game that gets people moving around, and one of our more popular options during this time. But we really just want to emphasize the benefits of healthy living habits and building some type of activity into your daily routine, so that teens are feeling a little bit more comfortable with how to implement that when they're in a college environment. Evening program wise, we love to, just have a sort of a wind down social activity at the end of our days. We'll typically have just a brief little meeting before this, just to review what's going on or what went on that day, what's going to be going on the next day. And then we'll have, outings like bowling or mini golf. We'll do some on-campus stuff like talent shows, movie nights, game nights, trivia nights, just a lot of campfires, things like that, that are just fun, sort of lightly structured social opportunities for our teens to wind down their days. And that sort of makes up like our typical day. And then we also have these outings too. So as you guys saw, there's definitely some day trips. That's a really fun part, an element of our programming that we're doing as well. And the outings that we do, sometimes they're, exploring small downtown areas like Salem or Plymouth, Mass, that are nearby to us. Sometimes we'll go into Boston. We'll talk about that as well. Going to ropes courses, uh, adventure parks, day hikes, things like that get mixed into our programming. And a lot of it's choice-based too. So they're sort of picking and choosing on an adventure trip day. Do I want to go to an amusement park or go river kayaking or go to a ropes course? So again, they're sort of guiding their own experience and picking the opportunities that they're most excited about. So that is what our day outings look like. And then Boston, we do Boston a few different times on full day trips and a couple of half day trips as well. Really get to see the best of the best in the city, whether that's checking out different museums like Museum of Art, Museum of Science, Aquarium, Zoo, attractions like Fenway and doing a tour there, the Freedom Trail tour, going around and hanging out in Boston Common or Faneuil Hall Marketplace in North End. So really getting to see the best of the city, and again, a lot of choice built into that as well. One other thing that our teens get more of on these trips is a lot more social independence too. So oftentimes when we're out on these trips, we're going to a set location, and then teens are, with a group of 4 or 5 of their friends, are going to start walking around that location independently and not necessarily have a staff member with them all the time. We want them to be exercising their social, independence a little bit more on some of these trips, and the trips are a really great opportunity for us to do that with our teams. So that is Boston, and that really wraps up most of the informational part of this evening. Definitely gonna have more time for Q&A, but just wanted to say a quick thank you for being here tonight and taking some time to learn a little bit more about our community. Again, I know this is not the best format to really show you all what the camp experience is all about, but really hope that you got a sense from the pictures and some of my words tonight, sort of what the Beyond Akeela experience really entails and what our teens are walking away from camp with. In terms of what next steps look like, we're going to include a lot of this information in the recording, but just to give you a sense of what next steps do look like, if this is something you're interested in and want to pursue, we partner with families to make sure that the teens who are coming to Beyond Akeela are really set up for success. We have the right peer group and the right type of support around them to give them a really meaningful experience. So the first step in that process is setting up a phone call, just to check in with each other, sort of mutually assess together if this feels like the right fit for your teen. And then from there, there's an extensive, not shouldn't say extensive, but an application process that you'll be able to go through all online. We seek information from professionals as well, and that will all be outlined in the email that I send, but different online questionnaires that we'll use. And we do a virtual meeting with all of our campers before they come to camp as well, just so they have a chance to get a familiar face before the summer. So that's sort of what next steps look like. I am going to send the recording out of this as well, including the Q&A portion, so that if you want to sit down as a family and review this later, that will certainly be available to you as well. So if you've gotten what you need out of this session tonight, you are more than welcome to hop off. But otherwise, I'm going to hang around a little bit here and do some Q&A with everyone. So I see we have one message that just came in, and it was asking for a copy of the slideshow. So yes, we are going to send out this info session. We can send the slide deck as well too, if you think that would be helpful to have separately, but it won't have the notes, but it'll have all the imagery if you would like. But you'll also get it, of course, in the recording. One of the other questions that came in earlier was what kind of split do we have in terms of persons identifying as girls and boys? It's a great question. So I would say if you look at it from like a percentage breakdown, I would say about 60%-ish would be male identifying campers, probably 35% female identifying campers, and then 5% would identify as non-binary. And then within, we have campers who are transgender as well, that are included in those percentages. So it's a very gender inclusive environment. People feel very comfortable in our community, regardless of how they identify. Obviously, if you have specific questions about that for your team, please know that we are here for that, and would love to talk through what that looks like individually for everyone. Let's see. There's a question here about, have campers enjoyed and sort of benefited from camp if they have an ASD diagnosis but no IEP type needs? So, I think to answer your question, yes. I mean, generally speaking, that profile you've described has been one that I've seen at Beyond Akeela, and a team who's been very successful at Beyond Akeela. And so that's something that, oftentimes it's best to have just individual conversations about that, and we can talk about our team's experiences, your team's experiences, and typically we do that on that initial phone call. That'll help us best sort of mutually assess if we have the right peer group for your team. That's a great question. We typically don't focus as much on diagnosis or IEP, but it's really identifying, what type of support does your team benefit from? Generally speaking, what does their social life look like? Who are they interacting with? What do they like to do for fun? How do they interact with their peers? And then how do they react when difficult scenarios come up for them? And what are those difficult situations? And how do they respond to them? How do they regulate through them? Those are the types of things that we talk through with it. Awesome. Another question here, are there phone calls with parents or with these initial phone calls, are they with parents or with potential campers as well? It can be both. In some cases, I'd say the majority of the time, I'll speak with just parents first. But if you and your team would like the team to be on that initial call, and we can do a video call, whatever works for your family, I'm happy to set it up that way as well. Actually, I'm going to stop the share. We don't need that slide. But yeah, I sort of take your lead on it from that end. One question I'm surprised we haven't gotten yet, actually, is no one asked about electronics, but I would love to talk about electronics with you all for a little bit here. So Beyond Akeela, in terms of like it's a pretty tech-free experience. I'll say that to start. And things that teens do bring to camp are things like their maybe an MP3 player or an e-reader. That's like a Kindle, Nook, sort of the Paperwhite, just like very basic, just you can read books on. They do not bring tablets. They do not bring cell phones, video games, things of that nature. And the reason is, as you all know, those can be really big social detractors. I know that's not replicating the real world, but we know that the social outcomes that our teens are gaining from this experience would be taken away from drastically if we allowed those devices in there. And that's a huge differentiator between us and any other teen program that's out there. And what we find is that teens often forget about these things after the first 24 hours, sometimes 10 minutes. It's a sort of a forgotten thing in their experience, and sometimes a bonding thing too. They start talking about different YouTubes and TikToks that they follow and things like that. But yeah, so I did want to sort of acknowledge that. I'm certainly happy to talk about any questions that you guys have further about that. but we are a pretty tech-free environment. We find again that leads to some really positive social outcomes for our teens. One thing that some families follow up with in regards to that is just like your communication with your teen and what that would look like. We do have some laptops set up in the dorm for each cohort that they can use to email back and forth with you at home. So if you want to, that can really be on a daily basis too. So if you want to have that type of communication with your teen, you are more than welcome to do so via email, and we will give it instructions on sort of how to set that up before the summer. The other piece about communication to mention is just your communication with us as a family communicating with us. So we're going to post everyday news items at camp. We're going to post daily photos. You get a good sense for what's really going on each day at camp through that. Additionally, we're going to set up 3 different phone calls with you over the course of the summer. One after the first few days, just a quick check-in, let you know how your teens are settling in. And then we'll do 2 separate calls thereafter to give you a more detailed sense of how they're really doing in our community, where we're providing more support, where your teens are thriving, how they're connecting with their peers socially, and in some cases brainstorming and partnering with you on things that maybe we can adapt on our end to help them have a more successful experience if there's some challenges that we're running into. But yeah, that's what your communication will look like. And again, I think we mentioned this earlier, but you will get a report at the end of the summer as well that sort of summarizes all of that communication and outlines sort of how your team did in the community, some of the skills that they were working on, and again, where they're going to maybe continue to benefit from some growth and support in, and then also some, where they're really thriving. And then a question about that just came in: did the parents talk to teens at all during that 2.5 weeks? You can set up a phone call with your teen as well, in addition to this other daily communication via email. So you can set up 1 phone call during that time if you would like to. And if your teen's birthday happens to fall while they're at camp, you can have an additional call. Certainly on that day, we would never take away a birthday moment from you. So yeah. Well, really the goal is not to keep them from you. It's to help them build a lot of the independent problem solving skills that come up in their day-to-day life, because these are often going to be the things that are really essential for them to be successful in colleges when hurdles come up for them, as being able to figure out how to independently problem solve, use the resources around them, as opposed to just defaulting to asking their family for help in those situations. Are there any other questions out there? And it's okay if not. Okay. Oh, great question. Do we allow campers to form romantic relationships? Yes, these are teenagers. They're 16 to 19 years old. So it is very developmentally appropriate for them to have romantic attractions to one another at camp. So yes, we do allow teens to, pursue those relationships if they choose to do so. And really how I see our role and our staff's role in that is to make sure that they are doing so in a healthy way for one another, checking in with each camper to make sure that they both feel okay. They both feel good about this. And those are individual conversations. And that happens very early on once we start to notice, and it's very clear when it happens, 2 campers may be starting to spend a little bit more time with each other, maybe physically being a little bit closer to each other more often. Things like that, even if we don't hear that they are dating or in a relationship of any kind, we're just going to check in and see how they're doing and say, hey, we've noticed this. How are you feeling about that? Just to make sure that both teens feel great about it and feel comfortable with it. And if they don't, talking through how to navigate that relationship from there. I will say we do set a very hard line that there's no sexual contact at camp. It's a 2.5 week experience. We have a really, obviously big responsibility to keep everyone safe. But teens, hold hands, can cuddle here and there, we'll share a kiss, and those are all very appropriate things for them to do and pursue in our community. And some of those relationships have lasted beyond summer. We've had international relationships that lasted like 6 months after camp. It was so great. So things like that definitely happen. Great. Another good question here about when we go off and on our trips and having a tech-free environment how we're sort of keeping tabs on everyone and making sure that teens are okay. So we do actually have some camp cell phones that we have purchase our own sort of cell phone plans for. And
I have
sorry, when campers go out on these trips, we will give each group a camp cell phone. There's all of the staff's phone numbers are programmed into those phones as well, so they can reach us as needed if you know when they need to. We always have a centralized meeting spot. And we also set some parameters around this too. So we're not going into downtown Boston and saying, all right, we'll see you in 3 hours without any sort of guidance on maybe where to go or what they're doing. This happens when we go to the aquarium and we're at the aquarium, or we go to Faneuil Hall and we say, hey, we are hanging out in this area. We go to the North End and we say, this is the general parameters of the North End and where you guys can explore it. So we set some guidelines and boundaries around that to make sure that it's done safely. We've been doing it for many years. They've always been successful. It's also just a really great learning opportunity for our teens to like practice navigating a new space and doing so without a staff member that they sort of default to. So where do we go next? They figure it out together and they always come back. So it's worked really well for us. Awesome. Any other questions? All right, these are some great questions. Thank you all. I think what we'll do, so I will I'll end our session here, and but I really do appreciate you all joining us this evening. It was really great to meet you all and share a little bit more about Beyond Akeela. I hope this was a helpful session for you. Again, we're going to send out the recording tomorrow with a few different links to the application process, things that are really helpful to talk with your teen about the program as well. And we'll look forward to setting up calls with you guys and starting the conversation about next summer. So thank you all very much and have a great night.